Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt Lownes here, live at LTV, and this is Ask The Supervisor. Today is Monday, February 14th, and I'm joined with East Hampton Town Supervisor Peter Van Scoyoc. Peter, how you doing?
I'm well. Happy Valentine's Day, Matt.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be hosting and having you here on Valentine's Day. Such a lovely day we got each February. But more importantly, Peter, we got to talk about shovels. Do
Yeah,
you
well,
have do you have your shovel behind you?
no, I don't have a shovel behind me. I have one in
Look,
front of me. Oh,
look at what I got.
that's a very special shovel.
I got a very special shovel from the
Yeah.
South Fork Wind Farm announcement here at LTV on last Friday with Governor Hochul and Secretary of Interior Hollihan. Peter, for the viewers who don't know, I'm going to explain quickly about what went down here at LTV on Friday. As I said, we hosted the Governor Hochul and Secretary of Interior Deb Haaland that came over here for the ceremonial groundbreaking on the South Fork Wind Farm, New York's first offshore wind farm to be situated approximately 35 miles off of Montauk Point. And Peter, you were there. The whole town board was there. Can you sort of explain to the public your part and the town's part over the last few years in getting this wind farm to finally happen? It should be done by 2023, I read, and to power over 70,000 small homes. Peter, this is a massive deal not only for East Hampton, not for the state of New York, but for the entire United States. So first off, congratulations. It was a wonderful event. And second off, if you could just explain kind of how we got to this point and now that we're finally here and we're going to start building this thing.
So this really started back in 2014 when East Hampton was the very first town in New York State, the first municipality in New York State to have a declared 100% renewable energy goal. And initially that was set for the year 2020. And we knew that wind would be a big part of the ability to reach that 100% renewable energy goal. And we live off what's known as the Saudi Arabia of wind here off our coast, very consistent, higher winds offshore, capable of producing a lot of renewable energy. So in 2015, in response to really fairly dramatic and steady increases in demand for electricity on the South Fork, LIPA put out an RFP for new generation sources. And in that RFP, they looked at all possible means of producing that energy. Typically, Long Island's energy comes from fossil fuel plants, whether it be coal sources, oil, or natural gas generation. And, we are really looking to get away from fossil fuels as much as possible. So the LIPA awarded this bid to Deepwater Wind, which had just successfully completed the first offshore wind farm in the United States, 5 turbines off Block Island. And it's taken since then to go through all of the permitting, through all the public sessions, engaging over 72 different separate entities and stakeholder groups in discussions and review. And, so it's been really a 7-year process to get us to this point. And this is a momentous occasion, what we had on Friday. The importance, I think, of this is reflected by the fact that we had New York's governor, Kathy Hochul, here, and our Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland, was here as well, showing not just a statewide significance, but a national significance to what has become New York's first and this only the second wind farm offshore in the entire country. New York's committed to many more turbines to follow with an extremely large goal of reaching 70% of all of New York's power generated by renewables by the year 2030, I believe.
It was an awesome day. It was an awesome announcement. It was an awesome ceremony. And to give the public who may be at home wondering, well, what is this really going to do? When the wind farm is fully operational, which is expected by the end of 2023, it will power around 70,000 average size residents, which the governor said will eliminate up to 6 million tons of carbon emissions over the next 25 years, or the equivalent of taking 60,000 cars off the road. That's a lot of cars, and that's a lot of good that will be done here in East Hampton, and it'll only get better throughout the country as far as offshore wind farms. One thing that I noticed that was very interesting was that a lot of union jobs are going to be a part of this, at least 100 plus union jobs. Peter, is there any particular way of ensuring East Hampton union workers get the ability to work on this instead of maybe union workers from elsewhere, up island or elsewhere? Has there been any talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And part of what's necessary is to be trained so that you're certified and capable in what is a new industry. These are new positions, new technology, and requires unique and new training. And I believe Suffolk Community College is offering courses as well to help train those interested in entering this industry, to be able to get high-paying union jobs with benefits and pensions and all the rest. And that's something that I think is appealing to many people at this point. It helps grow our economy, helps really deal with the rising costs of living here on Long Island. So overall, this is a really good thing. The governor's committed to put $500 million into the budget to help put in the infrastructure that's needed in order to build these wind farms right here in New York State. That has a multiplier effect within our economy. This is a green economy that we're looking to further here, and it all starts right here in East Hampton, which is fantastic. And I want to thank LTV for making the studio available. The governor's office had contacted me about having the ceremony here at Town Hall. And honestly, I thought LTV would be a more appropriate location given the size and the ability to handle a crowd of that nature. Town Hall's a bit smaller. So you guys did a fantastic job hosting us all. We really appreciate it. I've said it before, LTV is part of the heartbeat of East Hampton, and you guys are right there in the center of everything. So thanks for all of your great work and support on this.
Peter, I want to also just chime in there, and this is Jason from the control room. Thank you. It was an awesome thing having everybody here, and we were just so happy about it. Like, often, when we are on the town meetings, these are the things that most every resident wants, is good paying jobs, community building jobs, and things that will stabilize our electrical grid. This takes care of all of that, and it's an amazing leap forward, and it's going to set a great precedent for everything. And thank you for being here, and thank you for suggesting us. It was a great event.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, it truly was awesome to be able to have some of the amazing people, and really just the general concept of the wind farm is awesome. To be able to promote that and be a part of it any way possible was awesome from my point of view and all my coworkers as well. Thank you very much, and it's very good for the state of New York and for the country moving forward with the wind farm. And Peter, let's stay on the topic of green. And we're going to kind of flip-flop from topics here. We're kind of covering a few weeks of stuff in one show tonight. But let's talk about rooftop solar. 165 rooftop solar systems have been installed in East Hampton town since Solarize East Hampton program was started in 2018, with 63% completed in 2021. Generates 1.8 megawatts of power and saves about $5,000 or so. What is the long-term goals of the program now that we have, a pretty good amount in? What is the long-term goal of the Solarize East Hampton program?
Well, I think that really the long-term goal is to help our community, run on clean energy, period. And so we hope that residents will continue to incorporate solar into their homes. There are reduced costs because of the bid process we went through, and elected a local solar installer, Green Logic, to install these systems. And as you said, there can be significant savings on an annual basis in electric costs. Long Island has among the highest electric costs of any area of the entire country, partially due to the fact that we had a major nuclear plant at Shoreham that was built, and all the costs that were associated with that were passed on to rate holders, and so those bonds would be paid off, and we never, had the first kilowatt of energy produced by that plant because of the, extreme environmental concerns and the fact that you could not evacuate in the case of a meltdown. There's just too many lives at risk, and that was, mothballed basically. So, I personally put in solar on my roof the first year this program was offered. I think it's important to try to lead by example. I save an average of about $5,000 to $6,000 every year on my electric costs, and actually make more energy from those solar panels than I use. It goes back out onto the grid, so somebody else is using some of that green energy. You can do this if you're interested. Call our Natural Resources Department and ask them about the Solarize East Hampton program.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I strongly suggest to everyone that can get involved with solar, get involved. It's much easier than it was per se 20 years ago. So, and the town is doing it for you pretty much. Peter, let's move on to a topic that has been around for quite some months now. We'll go over it rather quicker. The airport. If I could just sum up some things quickly, just to catch everyone up from maybe when we last talked, the East Hampton Town Board decided that they were going to temporarily close the airport and then reopen it in the beginning of March. The FAA responded quite aggressively, randomly as well, with a letter to you guys, and really it was focused on the public instrument procedures that will be unavailable. FAA-operated navigational weather communication aids will be disabled, New York terminal radar approach control, track-on, etc. Real nitty and gritty doesn't really matter. You can look this up in an East Hampton Star article. What I want to know from you is what was the town's response to the FAA's claims that the East Hampton airspace has not been analyzed in many years, and that the airport cannot get it done in the allotted time frame that the board originally gave?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, Matt. You're correct that the town board voted unanimously to select option 2 of the list of options the FAA had given us back in November of 2020, pathways that we could pursue in our longstanding effort to gain control over the airport and to address considerable community concerns regarding aircraft noise and environmental consequences of the airport. So we decided option 2 based on consultation with outside counsel and many discussion sessions, that this would be the best pathway forward, as it allows the town the greatest amount of flexibility in putting together rules and regulations to operate our airport in a way, and the flexibility really balance the use of the airport with concerns of the entire community. And so the FAA, came up with a 5th option after that letter and after discussions with them, which was essentially the same, only transitioning to a private publicly owned private use airport without closure. But the biggest difference is that with the option 2, certain perpetual agreements and requirements that the FAA has in place would be extinguished. And that we felt was very important, because the FAA in the past has not been helpful with the airport. For well over a decade, the town has been seeking to have reasonable restrictions at the airport and have had no help from the FAA or from aviation industry in order to deal with those concerns in a constructive manner. And so moving forward, we filed a 7480 form for closure scheduled for February 28th. We chose that date because it would be least disruptive to operations at the airport. Operations at this time of year are very limited. We chose a 3-day closure period and plan to open again on March 4th. That is still on that schedule. We're still operating on that schedule. The FAA did send us a letter, which I think maybe was a result of being pressured by certain interest groups. That letter was leaked a week ahead of time to the New York Post and probably to others as well. I had inquiries a week ahead of that letter arriving. It came in after business hours on the eve of a town board meeting. And we felt like we'd been blindsided because there were many people in the aviation industry who'd been privy to that letter even before town board members received it. All that being said, the letter highlights a number of operations that we would like to have at the airport. Ultimately, those include instrument approaches. We would like to continue to operate our control tower so that we have a controlled airspace. We would like to continue communications with TRACON, which is basically the air controllers in New York, coordination with them. The FAA was misinformed as to the ownership of certain equipment on the town property. We do own the tower, and we do own the AWAS system, automated weather system, and at least one of the reels, the runway ending lights. So I think their concerns really center around their ability to process what they are going to consider a from scratch new airport. And, our communications with them, our position is this airport has been operating safely for many years. The airspace was looked at and reviewed as recently as 2019. And we feel that there should be ample amount of time for the FAA to review instrument approaches. Again, we're not proposing that the instrument approaches change. And because of closure, they're looking at it as a fresh start from scratch airport. And if you do look at it that way, yeah, it might take longer to have some of those approaches and certification of tower and all that sort of thing. We believe that we will overcome those hurdles and obstacles. We've been in constant communication with the FAA really since I'd say January 20th, and certainly since January 2nd. There are a list of things, objectives and goals that need to be reached. Hopefully they'll all be reached prior to opening the new airport on March 4th, but we are ready to go with that timeline, and we'll be having further communications with them this week, and we'll keep the community apprised as to developments as they occur.
As a follow-up, and this will be the last question on this topic as we got to get through some other stuff, is there a path to having an airport without the FAA provided aids and systems and really without their involvement at all? Is there a path for that to still be done?
Yes, there is. And although ultimately I think we want to be, again, able to provide a number of those amenities and features that the airport currently experiences, but we certainly believe that we could open as a VFR airport, which is Visual Flight Rules Airport. That's definitely a scaled down model of operation, but there's nothing in having that designation that prohibits any type of aircraft from coming and going at this time. I think what's more important to talk about is what the future of the airport is ultimately. We will be at our work session tomorrow discussing SECRA positive declaration, environmental declaration, the drafting of a generic environmental impact statement for opening the new airport's regulations, putting in place those regulations, which may have some impacts beyond East Hampton on other area airports, on traffic on the highway and whatnot. So under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, we will have to take a careful look at all of those things. There will be a draft scope of issues that will be presented, and discussion about the secret process at tomorrow's work session. And I think that's where the focus really of the community should go from here, as to how we will operate this airport going forward.
Thank you for the honest update. I appreciate it, and I'm sure others around the town do as well. At the end of the day, we'll keep focused on this issue until there seems to be a resolution. But for now, let's move on, as we do have other things to catch up on. Peter, I think it was last week, a lot of beach-related updates. Let me just drop some numbers here, and then I'll go over some certain things. 547 special permits in 2018, 577 2019, just shy of 500 in 2021. An idea of a special permit could be as big as a wedding on a beach, as little as a birthday party. The committee wants to see several code modifications for special events, including the following: codifying the special events committee itself, rush fee for expedited applications, cleanup deposit requirement for small events should be removed, permit holders should be required to carry in, carry out all trash, some liability stuff, and then prohibition, and then some bigger things. Requirement that the applicants provide a more detailed narrative of the event plan, prohibition of sparklers, fireworks, fire lanterns, and balloons. A lot of new things going on to the special events. Can you explain the understanding behind some of these changes? Specifically, some people may look at the prohibition of sparklers, fireworks, lanterns, balloons, and say, really? But others would make plenty sense, such as permit holders should be required to carry in and carry out all trash after the event. Can we go go over the why of all these actions, of how we got to this point and why we're making some changes?
Yeah, I think, it's really an annual review, status update on the use of our beaches, and on the special events have been increasing. I think, partially that was due to COVID, and people weren't being able to really entertain on their properties, and they wanted to be outside in some nice location with friends. The sizes of the events I don't know that they had grown that large, especially regarding the beaches. They average somewhere around 50 people or so. And, at the transfer station, rather than using the local beach end garbage cans. As far as fireworks and lanterns, sparklers, all that, they're all outlawed under state law already. And, we have passed balloon legislation, so it was important to include that. It's really more of a reminder as part of the permit, so that people understand that New York has laws against that. And that's really the reason that's being included.
Okay, cool. Awesome. That all sounds perfectly fine to me. I was a lifeguard growing up. I grew up at the beaches, so I've always seen the changes that have happened year in and year out, but most of it is always for the better.
So one of the other things that I'll mention that we did discuss had to do with lifeguarded areas, and the discussion of prohibiting smoking within a certain distance of lifeguarded areas. And so we haven't really settled completely on the distance, but I think the board was leaning towards 250 feet from a lifeguarded area boundary.
For that, as a former lifeguard, and as someone who's been in the lifeguarding community all growing up, I can tell you that this is very appreciated. It's very awkward or frustrating when someone is smoking, per se, a cigar or something, and it's thick, heavy smoke, and there's not much you could do about it. But if you're a lifeguard on the stand, it's very annoying. So I appreciate it. I'm sure families with young children appreciate it. It's a move that makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that. Let's move on to a sort of beach-related topic. We've been talking about it for quite some months. The Truck Beach contempt hearing. You actually testified on January 26th. Can you just quickly explain your testimony and the next steps in those hearings, as they're not officially over yet?
Yes, I was required to testify. It was actually 4.5 hours of testimony that I gave over 2 days.
Wow.
This is a case that is in the forefront of a lot of people's minds. We were ordered to prevent and prohibit people from driving on that section of beach, even though the appellate division, Second Circuit, basically reaffirmed that there were rights in the form of an easement that date back to the Benson deed that has reservation of the rights of fishermen, people who are going to fish or in the acts of fishing. And this order from Judge Basley seemed to go beyond that. And so we were brought in by the plaintiff's lawyers on charges of contempt that we did not prevent and prohibit people from driving on that beach. That relates to the 2 protests that occurred on the beach. And, we certainly did prohibit, and we're going to, vigorously defend against this claim of contempt. And ultimately, I think there will be positive judgments with regard to the Benson reservations, but this all takes a lot of time to wend its way through court.
Well, thank you for defending the public's interest in this battle, because it truly is a battle within the courts, and it's been going on for a long time. Quickly, because we do have to go, we have Ask the Mayor coming up next. Quickly, I do want to quickly ask you, because it's Valentine's Day, what's the one thing you love the most about being East Hampton Town Supervisor?
Wow, there are a lot of really great things about being East Hampton Town Supervisor. And I think aside from just being able to live here, which comes with its own great benefits and blessings.
It's the shovel, isn't it?
No, it has nothing to do with the shovel, and I don't even have one of those. The handles are way too short for me to use. Come some really great benefits, and I think just being able to do what you can to improve people's lives is really the greatest benefit.
So appreciative of all the hard work that you've given this town. Peter, thank you so much for hopping on again. I'll see you in 2 weeks for the next Ask the Supervisor. I hope you have a good rest of your week. And once again, congratulations on the big announcement on Friday. And happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you, Matt. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Stay safe and be well.
Good night.